The apartment was quiet except for the low hum of the ceiling fan. Ethan sat on the edge of his bed, running a hand through his damp hair, still thinking about how strange his life had become. On the surface, things were normal. He had a wife, Sophia, who trusted him, who believed their marriage was solid. He told himself it was solid too, most of the time. But when he moved in with Liam, his younger roommate, a shift began inside him, one he never wanted to admit out loud. Liam was different. Carefree, playful, always walking around half-dressed, humming songs while making coffee in the morning, leaving his cologne in the air long after he left a room. Ethan tried to ignore it, tried to remind himself that he was married, that he had a responsibility. But there were moments that stuck with him, like when Liam leaned close to show him something on his phone, their shoulders brushing, or when they laughed too hard late at night over some silly movie. And Ethan realized he was staring too long at Liam's smile. He shook his head now, as if that would chase the thought away. The shower had left his skin warm, his body relaxed, and for a moment he let himself breathe freely. He grabbed the towel from the chair and wrapped it loosely around his waist, thinking he had enough privacy. After all, Sophia wasn't here, and Liam was probably still out with friends. The apartment felt empty, safe, but as he bent over to pick up his shirt, the door swung open without warning. Ethan froze. Standing in the doorway was Liam, his hand still on the knob, his eyes widening before narrowing with something unreadable. Ethan's towel slipped slightly at his hip, and in a rush of panic he tried to clutch it tighter. "Sorry." "Man, didn't know you were in here," Liam said, but his voice carried a teasing lilt. Not the embarrassment Ethan expected. For a second they both stood there, neither moving. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, louder than the fan overhead. He could feel his face heating, not just from being caught naked, but from the way Liam was looking at him. Not with shame, but with curiosity. "It's fine," Ethan muttered, trying to force a laugh, though it came out strained. "Maybe knock next time?" Liam smirked, leaning casually against the frame instead of backing out. "Didn't think I needed to. You usually lock the door if you want privacy." Ethan swallowed hard, adjusting the towel again, though he knew the gesture only drew more attention. "Well, yeah. I forgot." The silence that followed stretched too long. Liam's gaze lingered, slow, deliberate, sliding over Ethan's chest, his arms, the towel at his hips. It wasn't the glance of a friend. It was heavier, charged. Ethan felt it like a weight pressing against him, making it hard to breathe. Finally, Liam tilted his head, a grin tugging at his lips. "Relax, Ethan. I've seen a naked guy before." Ethan wanted to protest, wanted to laugh it off again, but his throat felt dry. Instead, he tightened his grip on the towel and forced himself to step past him toward the bed, pretending to be unbothered. His skin, though, betrayed him. He could feel the goosebumps rising as Liam's eyes followed. "Go on," Ethan said, trying to sound casual. "I need to get dressed." Liam lingered another beat, then finally gave a low chuckle and stepped back into the hall. All right. Don't let me stop you." He closed the door behind him, but the echo of his smirk remained. Ethan stood still, towel still clutched, heart racing. He should have been angry or at least annoyed. But instead, the image of Liam's grin, the boldness in his eyes, played over and over in his mind. He dropped onto the bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to slow his breathing. It shouldn't have felt like this. It shouldn't have mattered. But it did. The way Liam had looked at him wasn't just teasing. It was an invitation, one Ethan wasn't supposed to want. And yet, as he replayed the scene, he realized a shameful truth. Some part of him had liked it. Some part of him wished Liam hadn't walked away so quickly. That night, Ethan lay awake long after the lights were off. Sophia's photo sat on the nightstand beside him, smiling warmly, a reminder of the promises he'd made. But in his chest, the memory of Liam's smirk pulsed louder than guilt, stirring something he couldn't name, something he wasn't ready to face but couldn't push away either. The next morning, Ethan tried to carry on as though nothing had happened. He made coffee, checked his emails, and answered a call from Sophia with his usual careful tone. She was cheerful, talking about her plans for the weekend, but his responses felt automatic. his mind drifting back to the moment in the bedroom. Liam hadn't said anything about it at breakfast. He just walked in shirtless, hair still messy from sleep, and poured himself a bowl of cereal like it was any other day. Ethan found himself glancing up too often, then snapping his gaze away when Liam noticed. They didn't mention the towel incident, but something between them had shifted. Ethan could feel it in the air. Every movement seemed slower. Every look carried a weight. When Liam leaned across the table to grab the sugar, his arm brushed Ethan's, and the contact sent a strange rush through him. He sipped his coffee quickly, trying to mask the reaction, but Liam's small grin suggested he'd noticed. Over the next few days, the tension built quietly. Liam's jokes carried new edges, teasing Ethan about being uptight, asking if he ever loosened his tie in more ways than one. Ethan would roll his eyes, playfully push back, but beneath his smile was a pulse of something darker, needier. He kept telling himself to ignore it, that he was a married man, that Sophia trusted him. But each time Liam lingered too close, the boundaries blurred further. One evening, Sophia called while Ethan was sitting on the couch beside Liam. Her voice was warm, casual, asking about his day. Ethan answered, but he felt Liam's eyes on him the whole time. When Ethan hung up, Liam raised an eyebrow. "You always sound so proper with her." "Like you're reading from a script," Ethan frowned. "She's my wife. I'm supposed to sound, I don't know, respectful." Liam smirked, leaning in just a little. "Respectful or careful?" The question lingered, and Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to argue, but instead he grabbed the remote, pretending to scroll through channels. The silence stretched, broken only by the flicker of the TV screen. He knew Liam was watching him, knew he should move away, but he stayed rooted to the spot. Later that night, after a long movie, Ethan dozed off on the couch. When he stirred awake, he realized his head was resting against Liam's chest. For a split second, panic surged. He should pull back, he should apologize, but Liam didn't move. His chest rose steadily under Ethan's cheek, warm and solid. Ethan froze, caught between guilt and comfort, until he felt Liam's hand shift ever so slightly, brushing against his shoulder. The touch was subtle, almost innocent, but it burned through him. Ethan sat up quickly, muttering something about being tired, and stumbled to his bedroom. But lying in the dark, his heart refused to calm. The memory of Liam's hand, the quiet steadiness of his chest beneath Ethan's cheek, kept replaying in his mind. Days turned into weeks, and the unspoken tension only grew. Ethan caught himself staring too long when Liam bent to pick something up, or when he came out of the shower with a towel slung low on his hips. He tried to bury it, telling himself it was nothing more than curiosity, that it would pass. But each night the conflict grew heavier, guilt battling desire, vows battling the rush of something forbidden. Then came the night that tipped everything further. They were both in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner. Liam leaned against the counter, close enough that their arms brushed. "You ever get tired of pretending?" Liam asked suddenly. Ethan froze with a glass in his hand. "Pretending what?" "That you're not curious." Liam's voice was low, steady. Ethan's breath caught. He turned to protest, but Liam's eyes were steady on his, unflinching. The air between them felt thick, heavy, and Ethan's body betrayed him. He didn't step back. He didn't deny it fast enough. "You're imagining things," Ethan said weakly, setting the glass down too hard. Liam leaned in closer, his voice a whisper now. "I don't think I am," Ethan's pulse hammered. He should have walked away. He should have laughed it off. But he stayed, trapped in the heat of Liam's gaze. His hand twitched, almost reaching out, then retreating. He wanted to close the distance, to give in. But Sophia's face flashed in his mind like a warning. Liam didn't push further. Not yet. He just smirked, brushed his hand lightly against Ethan's as he moved past him and whispered, "You don't have to pretend with me." Ethan stood frozen long after Liam left the room, his hand still tingling from the brief touch. He wanted to scream, to confess, to run. Instead, he leaned against the counter, chest heaving, torn between the life he had promised and the temptation pulling him deeper into something dangerous. That night, as he lay awake staring at the ceiling, Ethan admitted the truth he had been avoiding. He wanted Liam, and no matter how hard he tried to fight it, the line between loyalty and desire was already fading. The storm rolled in on a Friday night, rain hammering against the windows, thunder shaking the apartment walls. Sophia was away for the weekend visiting her parents, which should have been comforting for Ethan. Space to think, to clear his head. Instead, the empty apartment felt charged, like every shadow held a secret he could no longer avoid. He sat on his bed, scrolling absently through his phone, trying to distract himself. But his mind wouldn't settle. Every thought returned to Liam. His grin, his touches, the way he looked at Ethan like he already knew the truth Ethan was too afraid to admit. The memory of their near moments lingered, making his chest tight. A knock at the door broke the silence. Before Ethan could answer, the door opened and Liam stepped inside, barefoot, wearing only sweatpants and a loose t-shirt. He leaned against the frame, casual as ever, but his eyes betrayed something more. "Power's flickering," Liam said. "Figured you wouldn't want to sit alone." Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to tell him no, to send him away. Instead, he nodded, and Liam slipped inside, closing the door behind him. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier. For a while, they sat in silence, the storm outside filling the space between them. Ethan pretended to scroll his phone, but his hands shook. He could feel Liam watching him. Finally, Liam spoke, voice low, steady. "You've been different since that night." Ethan glanced up, startled. "What night?" "You know which one." Liam's gaze was unflinching. "The night I walked in on you." "You've been running from it ever since." Ethan's breath caught. He opened his mouth to deny it, but the words stuck. He felt cornered, exposed, and yet a part of him was relieved that Liam had said it out loud. "You don't know what you're talking about," Ethan muttered weakly. Liam moved closer, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I think I do." His hand brushed Ethan's, deliberate, slow. "And I think you want this as much as I do." The touch burned through him. Ethan's chest rose and fell rapidly, his body screaming one thing while his mind screamed another. He thought of Sophia, of vows, of promises. But then Liam leaned closer, his breath warm against Ethan's skin. And all the walls he had built crumbled. "I can't stop thinking about you," Ethan whispered. The confession torn from him before he could stop it. Liam's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "Then stop trying." The space between them vanished. Liam's hand slid to the back of Ethan's neck, and their mouths met in a kiss that was both hesitant and desperate. Ethan froze for a heartbeat, then melted, pulling Liam closer, surrendering to the rush of forbidden desire. The kiss deepened, raw and hungry, as if years of denial had broken in a single moment. Ethan's hands roamed, clutching at Liam's shirt, pulling him nearer. Every ounce of guilt, every warning in his head, drowned beneath the intensity of touch, taste, closeness. He knew he was crossing a line he could never uncross, but in that moment he didn't care. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless, their foreheads pressed together. Ethan's heart thundered in his chest, his body trembling. He had betrayed Sophia. He had given in. And yet, he felt more alive, more seen, than he had in years. They lay back against the pillows, silence stretching heavy between them. Liam looked calm, almost satisfied, while Ethan's mind spun with chaos. "This isn't who I'm supposed to be," Ethan whispered. "Maybe it's exactly who you are," Liam replied softly. "You just never let yourself admit it." Ethan turned away, staring at the ceiling. Sophia's voice echoed in his head, her trust, her love. The weight of what he'd done pressed hard against his chest. But beside it was something else, relief, liberation, a sense of truth he could no longer deny. When Liam reached for his hand, Ethan didn't pull away. He let their fingers intertwine, holding on as the storm raged outside. The guilt didn't vanish, but it was tangled with something undeniable, something that felt more real than the life he'd been pretending to live. They didn't speak much after that. The room was filled with the sound of rain and the heavy rhythm of their breathing. Ethan knew nothing would ever be the same again. He could no longer look at Sophia the same way, no longer pretend his desires didn't exist. The line had been crossed, and there was no going back. As he drifted into uneasy sleep beside Liam, Ethan realized he wasn't just afraid of being caught. He was afraid of what he now knew about himself, that the life he had built was not the life he truly wanted. And the most dangerous part of all was that Liam, with one smirk and one kiss, had shown him that truth in a way Ethan could never forget.